Coming up, Cherokee-style girls basketball, big wins, and an even bigger following.
I've seen some people leave, like, for after our games, and, like, I'm not trying to talk down on the boys, but, like, I've seen it happen, and I was like, well, our boys are kind of good, too. Like, you can stay and watch them, but, yeah.
Plus, she's credited with reviving the lost art of Cherokee pottery, a look back at Anna Mitchell's legacy.
I just think that she's one of the outstanding women in Cherokee history.
And humor as therapy, one man's quest to bring a little bit of joy to children who need it most.
The Cherokees.
A thriving American Indian tribe.
Our history.
Our culture.
Our people.
Our future.
The principles of a historic nation.
Sewn into the fabric of a modern world.
Hundreds of thousands strong.
Learning. Growing.
Succeeding.
And steadfast.
In the past, we have persevered through struggle.
But the future is ours to write.
Osiyo.
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 These are the voices of the Cherokee people.
Osiyo. I'm Principal Chief Bill John Baker. Welcome to the Cherokee Nation and OsiyoTV. We are so proud to share our culture, our heritage, our history, and our language with you. Wado.
Osiyo, it's how we say hello in Cherokee. I'm your host, Jennifer Lauren, at Hunter's Home, a historic Cherokee plantation in Park Hill, Oklahoma. We'll have more on this site in just a bit, but first, Anna Mitchell is sometimes called the grandmother of Cherokee pottery. She was the first woman to be named a Cherokee National Treasure for her work reviving the lost art of traditional Cherokee pottery making.
I think a lot of people said this, and it's true, that she resurrected pottery making in Cherokee as an art form.
Well, she's been such a gift in my life. I can't imagine someone not knowing about her, but I'm a little bit biased there. I started working with Anna Mitchell in 1986 or 87. I just think that she's one of the outstanding women in Cherokee history. I don't think they would have much of a class on the history of Cherokee pottery if they didn't talk about her.
You can say pottery and the world thinks Southwest. So I was very indignant. I thought, how dare them to, just forget that we had a beautiful culture at some time.
She was born in 1926 in Cherokee, Oklahoma. They lived in the sticks, we would say. Went to boarding school as a first grader.
She didn't speak English until she went to school. She went to Seneca Indian School.
Then when she met Dad, she was very young. I believe she was 19. They married and settled in Bonita. He was from Bonita. Mom could do anything. She cooked everything. She canned. She would make us donuts from scratch.
She sewed. She would look at Vanity Fair windows and see what was in fashion, and then she would just duplicate that. Very, very creative with just natural resources, I think.
And she was real artistic anyway. She made moccasins, she did beadwork, she did sewing. She did all kinds of artistic things, so I guess clay was just another thing that she wanted to try.
So Mom and Dad dug a pond, and when they dug the pond, they saw clay. Mom wanted to make a sequoia pipe. I think Dad wanted one like you see sequoia smoke in the classic pictures.
She started by reading about it and then just copying by hand what she read. Nobody was making traditional hand-built pottery, as a matter of fact, probably since the removal. There was nobody because they lost, their tools, and they didn't bring anything with them. They were too busy starting over.
What was available back then, she learned. And her husband was a great reader, too, and a great helper to her, Bob Mitchell. She and Bob both were big students of Cherokee history, and they read everything they could. That was all she had for reference then was some books, and they were very limited on what was Cherokee.
The more she did it, the more people knew she was doing that, the more access she had to museums and archaeologists, people that did know a little bit more about the actual way things were done.
Anna and I met in the early 70s when she came over to look at the museum collections to get some ideas about Southeastern pottery and motifs. I provided a book called Sun Circles in Human Hands, and that became her Bible of motifs for a long time.
When I first showed a piece of pottery to one of the research areas in Arkansas, they opened the doors to the archives to me, and they were very proud that a Native American was trying to do something.
Well, I jumped up and down because Anna was doing this. Students sometimes are not very enthusiastic about things in a university, but someone like Anna, who had great drive, was enthusiastic.
I know she made trips to North Carolina and looked at their pottery. I know the Gilcrease Museum was very good to her, letting her look at their archives.
So she learned from a lot of sources. She didn't learn from just a person. So she pretty much, trial and error.
Learning, experimentation, trial and error, and she succeeded more than any native potter in this area that I know about.
She always said, I want it to be the way our ancestors would have done it. Everything was handmade tools, things found in nature, like the smoothing river stones, and things like that.
Where it's found is how we know it's Cherokee. That was pretty much limited to the southern Appalachian area, and that's where Cherokees were living during that time period. Pots weren't too mobile. They didn't travel too far, except maybe a few trade pots.
Wooden paddle stamped pottery and some of the shapes, bringing them together, is uniquely Cherokee in the sense that Anna was uniquely Cherokee.
And one of the things that she excelled at was making her own clay slip. And it's a paint, you make it out of liquid clay that's a different color from the base piece of pottery. Very few potters do it because you have to put it on at a certain degree of hardness or drying before it's fired. Then you burnish it with a smooth stone, and if you do it too quickly, you'll pull the slip off. She perfected that.
When she first went to Santa Fe, she said that the Pueblo potters didn't know about Cherokee people making pottery. They would say, "Where are you making pottery? You're Cherokee." She said, "Our pottery is a lot older than yours." She knew how to hold her own in any crowd, that's for sure.
You might not see the beauty in it, but when I did my research, I could visualize an Indian sitting there ages ago and putting his ideas. All of our pottery tells the history of who we are. I realized that it was very important that somebody preserve this part of our culture.
Anna was made a Cherokee National Treasure. Back then it was called Cherokee Living Treasure, and she was the only woman in a crowd of maybe 8 or 9 men.
I learned from her in 1990. I came and I spent a whole year with her and Dad.
She taught just about anyone that ever asked her. And that's why I put my students' work out here today, because she passed it on to me for me to teach other people. And I wanted you to see that tradition is being carried on.
And students reveal indigenous culture is alive and well and is a sustainable resource. Anybody who would have met Anna would realize that. It's something that should be realized.
If we just keep this going and the elders teach the younger and the younger grow up and they teach the younger, it's sort of like our language. It will never be lost. There's no telling how far her hands and her mind have reached, so that's an awesome legacy.
In Cherokee communities, basketball is a big deal. From the youngest players in elementary school to independent men's, women's, and co-ed teams, around here it's called Indian ball. And the Sequoia varsity girls do it best, earning thousands of fans who never miss a game.
Here at Sequoia, we play Indian ball. We just run and gun, honestly. That's really how we beat people. We play fast every single possession.
I'm Jania Walker. I'm a Sequoia Indian.
My name is Lexi Keys, and I'm a junior here at Sequoia.
In 2017, we won our first state championship, and in 2018, we won back-to-back. And this year, we're hoping for the three-peat.
We're trying to three-peat, which has been done one time, and that was by Tahlequah many years ago with Angel Goodrich and that group.
Not many other high schools have fans like we do. We don't play for just us, we play for them, really. They want us to win more than we want to win at times.
They're amazing. I love it. That's my favorite part of the game is when you run out and like the cheerleaders start their clapping and their chanting and the crowd stands up and they do they just join in. It's the best feeling ever. I've seen some people leave after our games and I'm not trying to talk down on the boys, but I've seen it happen and I was like, well, our boys are kind of good too. You can stay and watch them, but yeah.
You know, I coached boys most of my career, and in a lot of places the girls are just kind of a second, and things. But I think our fans, they're going to show up to watch our girls, and we don't take a back seat to anybody. Cherokee people and the Native American people have lots of pride, and I think this is kind of the spotlight for a lot of our people because we have been successful. We've been playing for a nation.
You never really meet a stranger here. And there's not really cliques. Most high school has cliques,
Sequoia High School, we are a Bureau of Indian Education school that is tribally controlled. We're managed by Cherokee Nation, and we serve Native American students. And while most of our students are Cherokee, we serve a number of other tribes. It's usually in the upper 20s or on into the low 30s of other tribes that are represented by our student population. We're not a state public school, we're not a private school, but we have some different similarities and differences with both. We also have a residential facility, so some of our students stay in our dorms.
On our team, we have Choctaw, we have Chickasaw, we have Caddo, Cherokee, of course. I'm Cherokee. I went to grade school at Woodall. My dad's a coach there. Living with a coach and used to be playing for him, I've held myself to a higher standard, So I don't want to disappoint everyone else around me, but I definitely don't want to disappoint myself, That's been good and bad in some areas, but it's helped me grow. My freshman year, I got state MVP, and I got freshman of the year. Then I got all-tournament team my sophomore year, and junior year got MVP.
I've played basketball ever since I could pick up a ball, really. Both of my parents, they've played throughout their whole lives. And then other family members, they've either played it either in grade school and then not in high school, but we've all had a participation in it. Well, this year, my senior year, it's been emotional for them. And they are really supportive. We've had a few games where we haven't played as well as we should have, but they've always been there. And after we get done with the game and I change out of the locker room and I come out, they're always there waiting for me, and they all give me hugs and tell me good job. No matter what, they're always there.
Jonia, just really the lights came on in the state tournament last year. Jonia sometimes may not score 6 points a game, but she's going to have block shots and rebounds and just, she's in the middle of that thing. And then she's liable to come out and score 20. You just never know what she's going to do, But, she's a great kid too. And I told you this earlier, these kids are just unbelievable kids, but they love the game. That's why they came here. They came from different schools because they want to be part of this tradition, and she's been a big part of it. You got a big X on your back, but because anytime you play whoever, and you're from here and we won like we won, you're going to have to play every night. So probably I put too much pressure on them, and we try to not do that, but it's in the back of our mind of what our goal is.
Sometimes it's kind of hard because we have practices all the time, over all our Thanksgiving breaks, our Christmas breaks, everything. We're always here working on our game, but it makes it worth it. It's okay for me. I just kind of got used to it, but it was kind of hard to adjust to. I think it kind of sets us apart a lot.
And Lexi, all right, you're out on offense.
He pushes us to the absolute limit. Like if he knows we can go harder, he will push us to that point where we cannot go anymore. I think there's tension because I think me and the coach are a lot alike. Like I said, at the end of the day, we both respect each other and we understand each other.
I think what I take away is knowing that my last few years was in the best place I could be. And the years I've been here and the administration and this Cherokee Nation alone, it definitely has made me look at things a whole lot different in this world today, and I think it's made me a better person. Yes, it is my last year, and it's just time. It's time for me to go and do other things.
We want to do the best we can for him. We want him to go out on top. Whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen, So I've just kind of enjoy the moment and just take everything in, because it only comes once.
Hunter's home in Park Hill, Oklahoma lies just south of the Cherokee Nation capital of Tahlequah. It was here where a prominent couple built their home after their forced removal from Tennessee. Minerva and George Merle began construction on their Greek Revival home in 1844 and just a year later moved in. The home is named for George Merle's love of English fox hunting. George Merle was of English descent and not Cherokee, while his wife Minerva belonged to the Ross family. The Rosses were one of the Cherokee Nation's most notable families. Minerva's father, Lewis Ross, was once treasurer of the Cherokee Nation. Her uncle, John Ross, was principal chief of the Cherokee Nation during their most tumultuous years. He guided the Cherokee Nation through their painful removal years and adjustment to Indian territory.
Minerva came with her family and George came with her. And whenever they built this house and this property, George built it for Minerva because this is her plantation, it's her property. She's, as a Cherokee woman, is the owner of the home and the land.
The traditional role of a Cherokee woman can be seen in Minerva's strong presence in daily life at Hunter's home. Her many duties included running the plantation's crops schedule, financial responsibilities, balancing household budgets, caring for staff, and entertaining guests. Hunter's home was not immune to the realities of the time. Minerva and George Merle owned 42 slaves who worked their crops, home, and livestock. Many of the plantation's outbuildings attest to the hard work each day entailed. Hunter's home property included barns, a smokehouse, grain mill, slave quarters, blacksmith shop, and spring house. Despite a marriage of over 20 years, Minerva and George Merle did not have any children.
It's possibly because of her illness she wasn't able to carry a child to term.
Around 1850, Minerva came down with intermittent fever, most likely malaria. She faced several years of sickness and was bedridden at Hunter's home. Sadly, in 1855, at age 36, Minerva Ross Merle succumbed to her illness. After her passing, George Merle left Cherokee Nation and Hunter's home for Louisiana. The Civil War proved to be a difficult time for the Cherokees, effectively ending what many called the Golden Age of the Cherokee Nation. John Ross tried to keep the Cherokee Nation neutral and united during the Civil War, but was eventually forced to align with the Confederacy due to their dominance in the region. As a result, old animosities left over from the Cherokees' forced removal from their homelands reignited between those known as the Ross Party and the Treaty Party.
During the Civil War, Park Hill, Cherokee Nation was one of the most dangerous places to live if you were a civilian. There was a lot of guerrilla warfare going on here that wasn't happening in some of the other communities across the country. There was a lot of vendettas that were being carried out on people, citizens who were living here.
Located just half a mile east of Hunter's home, John Ross's home, Rose Cottage, was burned to the ground in 1863 by Stand Watie and his men.
There was a huge vendetta between Stan Watie and John Ross, and this house sort of became the center of that, especially since it was a Ross home.
During one such raid, Stand Watie, a Confederate general and foe of the Ross family, stood atop this landing in the dining room, brandishing a knife as his men ransacked Hunter's home. Following the Civil War and into the early 20th century, Hunter's home was occupied by various Ross family members. Many Ross family members, including Minerva, rest in the Ross family cemetery, not far from Hunter's home. In 1974, Hunter's home became a National Historic Landmark. Today, visitors can step back in time and see what life was like in the 1850s.
So we make our own dresses. We make our equipment out here that we use for gardening. We build our own fences. We split the rails for our fences, things like that. So whatever was being done at the time of the Merles, that's what we're doing out here. And the visitors are going to be able to come out and see that and really get an idea of what life was like here whenever Minerva and George lived here.
Today, Hunter's home is celebrated as the only surviving antebellum plantation in Oklahoma.
Jaleki idiwanihi. Let's talk Cherokee. Siyo galanista wadoa.
Siyo galanista wadoa.
Come here. Ehena.
Ehena.
Come here. Ehena.
Ehena.
Humor therapy. It's a way to help people forget about their worries and live in a happier moment. For Cherokee Nation citizen Larry Doherty, it's a passion and a cause near to his heart.
We're clowns. We're put on this earth to make people laugh. That's a very simple way of putting it, but you are able in just a few minutes to possibly change someone's life. My name is Larry Doherty. I'm originally from Veneta, Oklahoma. Live in Osiyo, and I work for the Cherokee Nation and spend my weekends, days off, and holidays volunteering at the Children's Hospital. I am a clown. You are awesome. I always loved the circus. When I was working with the Pasadena Symphony, one of the cast members had been a clown with Ringling Brothers, and I learned to juggle from him. I was fascinated. From then on, had wanted to be a clown. Came back to Cherokee country, and that's when I got my first job working for the Cherokee Nation for Wilma Mankiller. And that was an incredible time. Being around her was like being around a movie star. So I was living in Owasso, and my daughter Katie and I had been swimming. And we stopped to get her something to eat. She became very sick. And so the next morning, we took her to the emergency room at St. Francis in Tulsa. They admitted her and eventually diagnosed her with a life-threatening case of E. coli. We were in ICU for nearly 2 months. She was on dialysis. And when they put her on a ventilator, and you're seeing your daughter lying there hooked up to multiple machines, and realize you have to be honest with yourself, and you can't keep trying to fool yourself that she might not make it. And there's no way to describe it unless you've actually experienced it, been in that hospital room. You go into a zone when you're there day and night for months. Every waking moment is concern with your child. During that time, I was doing everything I could do to make her feel better, so I brought all of my tricks up to the hospital. My jokes, the juggling, balls, anything I could do that would just make her feel better. It was really reaching deep because she was in bad shape. I started doing entertaining for the doctors and the nurses, and then eventually made my way up the hall to different rooms where there was a child that was well enough to be entertained. In the time that we were there, we saw a lot of families come and go. Some children get to go home with their families, and some children go home to see God. Sorry. Katie eventually got better. We got to leave the hospital. We were blessed. She's a healthy, happy 13-year-old now, and couldn't be more proud of the person she was while she was in the hospital and the person she is becoming today. Yeah, I've been working in hospitals. It's going on 5.5 years. There's two different sets of talents that you have to have. One is as a performer, and one is understanding the hospital environment.
La 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 la. What the?
The Dr. Ticklebaum, I wanted to create a character, a person that is a much kinder, gentler type of person that people could see walk into their hospital room and feel at ease. You are there to share the outside world with them. It's not just the child you're there for, but it's also the mom and the dad, the grandma and grandpa, the doctors and nurses. Everybody there needs a break. I think that one of the most important things that you can do, take them away from the problem they're having right then, and for just a little bit of time, make it better.
We hope you enjoyed our show. And remember, you can always watch entire episodes and share your favorite stories online at Osiyo.tv. There is no Cherokee word for goodbye because we know we'll see you again. We say, Dodadago ha'i. Wada.